The world was not quiet. It was full of sounds, the grunt of a beast in the distance, the buzz of insects, the rustle of grass that could mean predator or prey, the crack of a dry branch underfoot. But it was a world without human noise. No engines, no music, no chatter from a television. The only human sounds were the ones you and your small group made. A call, a cry, a word, the sharp crack of one stone hitting another. To understand the world of the first humans, you have to forget almost everything you know. Forget cities, farms, houses, and roads. Forget countries and calendars. Forget the idea that humans are in charge. For millions of years, we were not in charge. We were just another animal trying to survive. A clever animal, a strange animal that walked on two legs, but an animal nonetheless. Our world was the physical world, immediate and unforgiving. Let's go back. Not just a few thousand years, but a few million. Let's go back to East Africa, to the Great Rift Valley. This is where the story begins. The Earth itself was more active. Volcanoes smoked in the distance. The ground shook sometimes. The landscape was a mix of things. There were forests, but they were shrinking. The climate was changing, getting drier. The great dense jungles were giving way to open woodland and wide open grasslands, the savanna. This changing world was the stage for our evolution. It was the problem our ancestors had to solve. The first major step was getting up on 2 feet. For millions of years, our ape-like ancestors, the Australopithecines, were learning to walk upright. As Lucy was one of them, walking on two legs changed everything. It was a huge gamble. You're slower than a four-legged predator. Your back hurts. Giving birth becomes more dangerous. But the advantages were profound. Your hands are free. You can carry things like food or a helpless baby. You can see over the tall grass, spotting danger or opportunity from farther away. And walking is efficient. You can cover long distances without using as much energy searching for scattered food and water. So picture this early ancestor, small, hairy, maybe 4 feet tall, living in a world that was getting more open and dangerous. Their world was a constant search for food. What did they eat? They weren't mighty hunters. They were scavengers and foragers. They ate what they could find, fruits, nuts, roots they dug from the ground. Insects. Bird eggs they snatched from a nest, and meat. But they didn't get meat by heroically taking down a giant buffalo. They got it by being clever and patient. They followed lions and saber-toothed cats at a safe distance. When the predator was done with its kill, our ancestors would move in. They would scare away the hyenas and vultures, grab what they could, and run. Their first tools weren't spears. They were simple rocks. Rocks to smash open bones. The marrow inside a bone is rich in fat and calories, a superfood. That was the prize. The world was a world of leftovers. The predators were everywhere. This wasn't a zoo. The animals were not behind fences. There were cats with teeth like daggers. There were giant hyenas that could crush bone with a single bite. Crocodiles lurked in the rivers. Snakes were a silent threat in the grass. A small, slow hominin was an easy meal. Survival was not an individual effort. You did not survive alone. You survived in a group. A small band of maybe 20 or 30 individuals. Your family, your world was this group. These were the only other beings you could trust. You foraged together, you watched each other's backs, you huddled together in fear at night. The night was a different world. With no artificial light, the darkness was absolute. The moon and the stars were brilliant in a way we can no longer imagine, but the dark was also when the hunters came out. The sounds of the night were terrifying. The roar of a lion doesn't just sound loud, you feel it in your chest. The whoop of a hyena pack meant death was nearby. The safest place was up a tree or in a rocky shelter. You would sleep close together for warmth and for safety. The world was a place of deep, constant anxiety. Every shadow, every sound, every smell had to be interpreted. Is it a threat? Is it food? Is it safe? Your senses were your lifeline. Then something new happened. One branch of these upright apes started to change more rapidly. Their brains began to grow. We call them the first members of our own genus, Homo. The first was Homo habilis, the handyman. They were the ones who really perfected the art of making simple stone tools. It was a feedback loop. Free hands allowed for tool use. Tools allowed for better food, like bone marrow and butchered meat. Better food provided the energy for a larger, more expensive brain. A larger brain allowed for better tools and more complex social behavior. This loop would define the next 2 million years of our history. The world of Homo habilis was still Africa. It was still a world of scavenging and gathering, but they were better at it. They were organized. They would carry their special tool making rocks for miles. They had favorite spots, butchering sites where they would bring parts of a carcass to process. This shows planning, it shows foresight. They were not just living in the moment. They were thinking about the future, even if that future was just this afternoon. Then came Homo erectus, taller, stronger, with a much larger brain. Homo erectus was a different kind of human. They were not just scavengers, they were hunters, not of the biggest, most dangerous animals, perhaps, but they were actively hunting smaller game. They made better tools, not just simple choppers, but beautifully crafted hand axes, symmetrical and sharp. A hand axe is the Swiss Army knife of the Pleistocene. You can butcher an animal, dig for roots, cut wood, defend yourself. It was a tool they kept with them for over 1,000,000 years, a testament to its usefulness. And Homo erectus did something no creature like them had ever done before. They left home. They walked out of Africa. Why? We don't know for sure. Maybe they were following the herds of animals they hunted. Maybe the population grew and they needed more space. Maybe they were just curious. Whatever the reason, they spread across the globe. They walked into the Middle East, into Asia, all the way to China and Indonesia. They walked into Europe. Imagine that journey. A small band of humans walking into a world they had never seen. New plants, new animals, new climates. They had to adapt or die. In the north, they faced something they had never experienced in Africa: cold. True, bitter, cold. They needed to find shelter in caves. They needed to use animal hides to keep warm. And they needed fire. The control of fire was perhaps the most important discovery in human history. Fire changes everything. It provides warmth, allowing us to survive in cold climates. It provides light, pushing back the terrifying darkness of the night. It keeps predators away. A lion is a lot less brave when faced with a crackling fire, and it cooks food. Cooking makes food safer to eat by killing parasites. It also makes it easier to digest, unlocking more calories. A cooked piece of meat gives you more energy than a raw one. That extra energy could have been another key factor in the growth of our brains. But fire did something else, something more subtle. It created a hearth, a place to gather. The fire became the center of social life. Around the fire, the group would share food. They would mend their tools, they would sit together in the safety of its light. This is where community was forged. It's where the first hints of culture might have begun. Did they tell stories? We don't know. Their language would have been simple, maybe not much more than complex grunts and gestures. But around that fire, they shared an experience. They were a single unit against the vast, dangerous world. The world of Homo erectus was an ice age world. The climate swung wildly. Huge glaciers would grow from the poles, covering northern Europe and America in sheets of ice miles thick. Sea levels would drop, connecting lands that are now separated. Then the glaciers would retreat, and the world would get warmer and wetter. Our ancestors lived through dozens of these cycles. They were masters of adaptation. They survived the heat of the African savanna and the freezing cold of a European winter. For hundreds of thousands of years, there were different kinds of humans living on the planet at the same time. In Europe and the Middle East, the Neanderthals evolved. They were descendants of Homo erectus, who had adapted to the cold. They were shorter, stockier, and incredibly strong. Their brains were as large as ours, or even larger. They were expert hunters, capable of taking down mammoths and woolly rhinos. They lived in small family groups, cared for their sick and injured, and buried their dead. Their world was a harsh, cold landscape of tundra and sparse forest. They were the original northern peoples, survivors of the ice. In Asia, there were other groups, like the Denisovans. We know very little about them, mostly just a few bones and teeth from a single cave in Siberia. But their DNA tells us they were a distinct group, another branch of the human family tree. For a very long time, Earth was home to a diversity of humans. The world wasn't just our world. It was their world, too. Then, back in Africa, my kind and your kind evolved. Homo sapiens. Anatomically, we were there around 300,000 years ago. We looked like us. But for a long time, we didn't act like us. We made the same kinds of tools as our predecessors. We lived in similar ways. The world was still a place of survival, of hunting and gathering. Then, somewhere around 70,000 years ago, something changed. Something happened in our brains. It's often called the cognitive revolution. We started to think in new ways. The biggest change was language. We developed a complex, flexible language. We could not only say, "Look out, a lion," we could also say, "Yesterday I saw a lion by the river." We could share vast amounts of information. We could also talk about things that don't exist. We could talk about spirits, about legends, about the future. We could create stories. This changed our world completely. The world was no longer just a collection of rocks, trees, and animals. It became a world of meaning. A particular mountain wasn't just a big rock, it was the home of a great spirit. The eagle wasn't just a bird, it was a messenger from the sky. We started to create art. We painted stunning images of animals on cave walls in France and Spain. We carved small statues of women from mammoth ivory. We made jewelry from shells and animal teeth. We were decorating our bodies. We were expressing an identity. This new way of thinking gave us a massive advantage. We could cooperate in much larger groups. Neanderthals probably couldn't maintain a social group of more than 50 or so. Homo sapiens could form tribes of 150 or even more, all connected by a shared story, a shared myth. We could plan and coordinate in ways no other human had before. We invented new, better tools. Spears with finely crafted stone points, spear throwers that let us hurl a spear with incredible force and accuracy. Or bows and arrows. We made needles from bone to sew together fitted clothing from animal hides. We wove nets to catch fish and baskets to carry food. Armed with this new mind and new technology, we spread out of Africa once more. And this time, it was different. Wherever we went, the old world vanished. We met the Neanderthals in Europe. What happened? It probably wasn't a single dramatic war. We were more numerous. We were probably better at getting food. We may have had better social networks to fall back on when times got tough. For a few thousand years, we lived side by side. We even interbred. Many people of European and Asian descent today have a small amount of Neanderthal DNA. But in the end, they disappeared. They were like absorbed or outcompeted. Their world came to an end. The same thing likely happened to the Denisovans in Asia and the last remnants of Homo erectus in Indonesia. Within a few tens of thousands of years, for the first time in millions of years, there was only one species of human left on planet Earth. For us. The world we entered was also a world of giants, the Pleistocene megafauna. In North America, there were mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, as big as elephants, and saber-toothed cats. In Australia, there were giant kangaroos and wombat-like creatures the size of a rhino. As we spread across the globe, these giant animals started to disappear. Did we hunt them to extinction? Or was it the changing climate at the end of the last ice age? It was probably a combination of both. But our arrival was certainly a major factor. We were a new, incredibly effective predator. The world had never seen anything like us. So, what did the world look like for the first Homo sapiens who were truly like us? It was a world of immense possibility and immense danger. It was a wilder, richer world in terms of animal life. The herds of bison and wild horses on the plains of Ice Age Europe would have been a sight to behold. The night sky was a brilliant map, unobscured by city lights. The air and water were clean. But life was short and brutal. A broken leg was a death sentence. A tooth infection could kill you. Childbirth was a massive risk. You were constantly hungry. You lived with a level of daily violence from predators and perhaps from other human groups that is hard for us to comprehend. Your world was small in one sense. You might live your entire life within 100 square mile territory. You knew every hill, every stream, every grove of trees. You knew the habits of every animal. This land was your entire universe. But your world was also large. You were connected to other groups through trade and kinship. You might walk for days to meet with another band, to trade good stone for tools, to find a partner. And you were connected to the past and future through your stories, the stories of your ancestors, the myths of creation, the legends of the spirit world. Your world was not just physical, it was a world of the mind, a world of imagination. This was the world that made us. Our bodies are still the bodies of hunter-gatherers. Our minds are still the minds of hunter-gatherers. We crave fats and sugars because they were rare and valuable sources of energy. Our fight-or-flight response is a relic of a time when we had to instantly react to a predator in the grass. Our need for community, for a tribe, is a direct inheritance from our ancestors who could not survive alone. We are a product of that lost world. A world without cities, without writing, without machines. A world of stone, bone, and fire. A world of family, survival, and the first stories ever told. It is a world we can never go back to, but it is a world that is still in so many ways inside us.